Hi, thanks for stopping by to check out this video. Today's topic I want to discuss what it's like being black in Finland. On all of my videos, I never actually say it, but they're obviously just based on my own personal experience. In this particular case, I want to kind of emphasize that because I think this topic, lots of different people could have different experiences. So I definitely want to just highlight that this is just on my own personal experience. I have spoken to a few black people in Finland, but I've never really had an in-depth conversation about experiences and finding out how other people are finding it as a black person in Finland. So with that caveat, let me just give a little bit of background. I was born in Jamaica, and when I was in elementary school, I moved to the US. And I remember my first day of class, walking into a classroom where 95% of the students were white. And I sat down and just, did whatever we do in second grade and, just continued. And I immediately felt like part of the class. And what I realized years later is that I was not very aware of the fact that I was black and most of the class was white. When I was probably around 12 or 13, that's when race kind of came into the picture. And I think everybody kind of sort of now knew, oh, wait a minute, there are black people, there are white people. Back in those days, there were hardly any Asians or Indians where I lived. So even that didn't even come into the picture. But, so just suffice to say, from a relatively young age, I'm used to being in a situation where I am a racial minority. Following up after that, when I was in college, I did exchange programs in Spain and in Mexico, and this was back in the 1980s. And in those days, black people didn't really travel that much, so it was very unusual to find a black person in Mexico or in some parts of Spain because they just weren't as used to seeing it. So again, this is another experience that I kind of reflect on, draw upon, saying, okay, I've had that kind of experience being an exchange student living abroad in a country where I was a minority. Also, later on in life, I immigrated to the UK, and even though the UK has a strong history of black presence, that being from the Caribbean and from Africa, again, that was also a new environment for me, being in Britain, kind of seeing what the dynamics were, the race relations were there. About 6 years ago, I left Britain and I moved to the Middle East. I moved to Oman. And again, that was another situation where that was actually a bit different as well because Oman has a big link with Africa. But again, that's another situation of moving to a new environment, being a black person in a society where, you're not the majority. And then finally from Oman, I moved to Finland, where obviously, again, I'm in a situation where, there aren't that many black people here. In fact, probably living in Finland is a place where I have lived with the fewest black people. But I just kind of give that background also just so that to explain that I've had lots of different scenarios. This is not my first time being out of a comfort zone, so to speak. It's just been very, very common. Addition to those living situations, I've traveled to over 50 countries, all over Asia, Europe, South America. So again, I remember being places like in Indonesia in the middle of nowhere and, being the only black person in the village type of thing. So I've had the experience, and so I just want to kind of talk about how I've encountered being black in Finland. Overall, I would say my experiences have been very good in Finland. I've had a few quirky situations, but I can't really complain. I've been here now over 3 years, and so my first kind of quirky situation is I have this flat in the countryside in this small town, And we bought this flat in 2023, like December 2023. Sorry, 2022. And it's a condominium, and so they have a condominium board meeting once a year. And that was in June of 2022. So I turn up for the condominium board meeting. I can't really understand what's going on. I'm probably picking up, like, if I'm lucky, 30% of the conversation, but I just like to go anyway. One, to just show my face, and two, it's an opportunity to sit and observe Finnish people. It was a small room. There were about maybe 10, 12 people attending this meeting. And the room was so small, it was really a tight squeeze to get all the chairs in for just a dozen people. So anyway, the meeting goes on. It's about an hour, and then it disbands, and everybody goes home. About 6 months later, I had locked my keys in a kuivaushuone, which is like the drying room that we use to hang our laundry in the building. And so I went and I knocked on my neighbor's door to ask him if he could open the door to that room, because I knew my keys were there, and then I could get back into my flat. And he made such a big deal about it. Literally, it's my next door neighbor. And he was asking me what my name was. He was checking the board. There's like a signage board in the lobby that kind of lists all the apartments and what the names were. And my name wasn't on the board because the person that lived here before actually died the previous year, and we were thinking we might rent out the flat. And so we just never actually physically got our names put on the board. But I thought it was a bit odd because he was in this, annual meeting about 6 months ago. And if you're in a meeting with 12 people and, some big black guy walks in, I find it strange that he doesn't remember me, and why is he kind of asking questions about where I am, what apartment I'm in, because he's actually seen me come and go a couple times from that apartment. So I just thought that was kind of a weird situation. Right after that, I actually went to the management company and had them put my name on the board, just so that if there's any further issues, at least I can just point to my name and say, hey, I'm there. The other kind of slightly strange situation that I had was I had a double knee replacement operation, which is a pretty heavy ordeal, a couple of years ago. And when I was in the hospital, I was sharing a room with 3 other people. So there are 4 beds in this room. And the doctor would come around to do rounds every day. And I was in the corner, and he would always go to all the other beds and converse with the other patients first. And he would also kind of have the little residents or interns with him. So there was probably 7 or 8 people in this little group, and they would walk around from bed to bed. And they would spend, I would say, maybe 5 minutes at each bed discussing progress, reading the chart, speaking to the patient, and that sort of thing. When they got to my bed, I would say, at best, they would spend 60 seconds with me. And I found that kind of strange because I'm thinking, hey, how come you're talking to these other people for so long? And then when you come to me, it's basically, oh, you're still alive, let's go. Now, I kind of put it down to the fact that maybe it's a language and the doctor wasn't comfortable speaking English, so, he was just trying to kind of get through it. The only other time I do get a little bit of irritation from bus drivers when I get on, because sometimes they ask something and I'm not sure what it is. But I wouldn't say rudeness, but I definitely feel a bit of irritation with the bus drivers sometimes. But other than that, I would say my experiences are pretty normal. Aside from, what did make me kind of think about making this video is because Salo is kind of the city where I live, And in the countryside, it's Pernio, where the flat is. And I did notice the other day when I was getting off the bus that I've never seen another black person in Pernio. And I've been coming here now regularly for about a year. And there are some Ukrainians around, maybe some Russians. I can't really tell the difference. Definitely, I know that there are Ukrainians around. And the person that cleans this apartment building is Thai. But other than, there's like a kebab shop which has like a Middle Eastern family running it. But other than the Middle Eastern family and the Thai woman that cleans this building, I've never seen a non-white person in this entire town. And the town has a population of about 6,000 people spread out over a wide area. And I live like right in the center of town. But just kind of coming, going in the shops, I have never seen a black person. So it was that kind of realization that got me thinking about, yeah, what would it be like if I was here all the time? In terms of living in Salo, where my main apartment is, I would say, I would expect to see 1 or 2 black people a day in the summer. In the winter, I could go a whole week without seeing a black person, maybe even longer than that, because people are just not out and about. So, to say I see, and maybe one day I might see 5, which is to say, no one gives me a second look. And honestly, even here in Pernio, I wouldn't say anyone really gives me a second look. But in Salo, there are black people that live there who kind of come and go. So, I just feel like a normal person. Aside from these 2 smaller cities, I go to Turku maybe every couple months, same with Helsinki every couple months. And there, my experiences are pretty normal. I don't feel like I stand out. If anything unusual or slightly strange happens to me, I feel like it's more that I'm a foreigner as opposed to that I am black. Most people, certainly in Salo and Pernio, everyone speaks to me in Finnish. No one speaks to me in English. They assume I speak Finnish, so I try and make an effort when they do. So overall, I feel that, I don't really feel that there is much of a color issue or that I feel discriminated against. I feel I get pretty normal everyday treatment from Finnish people. Now, the funny thing though, which I never noticed, but my partner says that people are very interested in me, and that like if we go to a party, everyone is gathered around me, asking me questions, wanting to know more about me, where I've come from, where I've lived, why I've moved so much, what do I think about Finland, which, I never really notice it. It just, to me, seems like normal, regular conversation. But he tells me that no, that's not normal conversation for Finnish people. They're much more shy and reserved, and they don't really ask that many questions. But they find it intriguing that I've decided to move here, and so a lot of people want to engage with me and find out more about me. So yeah, that's my experience with being black in Finland. I don't have any complaints. I feel just like a normal person living my life here. And other than I feel kind of glitches with not knowing the language. I think one thing that's a bit strange about me is my age. Because I'm so old, because I was so old when I came here, most people would not come to Finland, I think, or don't come to Finland at such an old age. So when they see someone like me, normally I have like a big head of bushy hair and a big bushy beard. So I think I look a lot older. I look like, like a 70-year-old grandfather, I think sometimes. And so I think people think I've been here, 20, 30, 40 years. And I think that's also one reason why people just kind of speak to me, assuming that, he's been here so long, he must speak Finnish well. So yeah, that's just my experience here in Finland. I don't have any complaint. The one thing I would say is that I've never worked in Finland, so I don't know what it would be like in the workplace and having colleagues. and if I felt like, I was in the job market competing with my coworkers for promotions and assignment and that sort of thing, how that would turn out. So I definitely feel that would be a different experience rather than kind of a retired person who's just here living, shopping, traveling around, and not working. So that's it. Thanks for listening to my stories. And if you have any questions about being Black in Finland, feel free to drop a comment. Thanks. Bye-bye.